Okay, today we are going to work on ordering a set of values that includes decimals, mixed numbers, fractions, and improper fractions. You might also see decimals with whole numbers. Now, I want to point out quick, you have already done some comparing and some ordering with all of these values, but today you're kind of going to be putting all of those things together in one learning target. Okay, so first one we are going to start with is right here. Why don't you go ahead and write these values on your whiteboard or on your piece of paper? And what we're going to do is we are going to put these in order from least to greatest. So why don't you also include a line? I'm going to do mine in red. And I'm going to put on here an L for least and a G for greatest. You could also think teeny tiny, super big, really, really small, gigantic, any synonyms you can think about for least to greatest. Okay, now, hopefully what you see right here is that we have values up here. We have 5 and 53 hundredths. We have 16 thirds. We have 8 and 832 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And then we have 2 and 18 hundredths. Now, the really tricky part about this is these are all kind of in different forms. I see we have decimals, we have mixed numbers, we have improper fractions. So, what we want to do is we want to order these. And what I don't want you to do is think that you have to order them all at once. I want you to think, how can I make this process easier for myself? Because if you try and order these while looking at all four of them at once, you're going to have a hard time. I want you to try and break it down for yourself a little bit. So, the strategy that I like to use is I like to look for and ask myself, what stands out right away is either being really teeny small or really big. Okay? What I notice here is that we have an improper fraction. So I think what we should do, actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Do you see right here how we have a decimal value and there's no number in the front? Now I can see right here, we have a ones, number in the ones place. This is going to be greater than one whole, and this is going to be greater than one whole. So right away, what I know is that this 832 tenths, hundredths, thousandths is my smallest value. So I'm going to put that at the very bottom of my number line. Go ahead and do that. And what we've done for ourselves now is we've kind of narrowed it down. Now we're only looking between 3 of these. Okay. Now, I think what the next step for us is going to do is going to be to turn this improper fraction right here, 16 thirds, into a mixed number. Then we can at least compare it with the whole number 2 and the whole number 3. Let's see. So 16 thirds, and we're going to divide 16 by 3. Remember, what we're looking for here is how many 3/3 we can make, or groups of 3. So I can get as close as I can to 16 with 3, which is 3 times 5 is 15. And you can do this any way you want. If you want to do repeated addition, skip counting, that's fine. And we're going to get 1 left over. So because I'm going to be comparing this to a decimal and 18 hundredths, I'm still going to keep my 1/3. So I'm going to bring this 1 up, and it's going to be the numerator part of my mixed number, 1/3. Okay, so I'm not going to be ending up writing 5/3 on my number line, but I do know that 16 thirds is equal to 5 and 1/3. Okay, now that I have that, can I compare what's left over? Sure, I can. Let's just look at our whole numbers here. Do you see that 3 is greater than 2 and 5 and 1/3 is greater than 3? Yep, so that's actually all the comparing we need to do. I'm going to take this 16 thirds because I can tell it is our greatest value, and I'm going to put it all the way towards our greatest part of our number line. And then next is going to be 3 and 53 hundredths. And then lastly, 2 and 18 hundredths. So I still have my decimal form and fraction form here. I don't have to compare those 53 hundredths and 18 hundredths because our whole numbers are different. Okay. So even if you do some transforming here, or you put this improper fraction into a mixed number, or you change a fraction to a decimal, make sure your original values are the ones that are going on your number line, the ones you started with. Okay, how did that feel when you did it all together with me? Pretty good? Hope so. Let's do another one. Okay, now this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. Oh my goodness. So let's do our line again on our whiteboard. And now this one, I'm going to give you a little tiny bit more think time to do. We're going to do least again to greatest. If you really want to write those words out, you totally can. Now I can tell here we're going to have to do a little bit more comparing work because I see we have a fraction, decimal, fraction, 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 or improper fraction here. So right away, do you see any on here that stand out to you? You could also think like, are some really close to one whole or really close to zero or really close to a lot of wholes? What I see here is I see this improper fraction kind of stands out to me. And I think we need to deal with this before we do anything else. So I am going to, right here on the bottom of my board, and you can do this with me, I am going to turn 12/5 into a mixed number. And I'm going to do that by dividing 12 by 5. Remember, we're trying to find out how many one wholes or how many 5/5 we have. 2 times 5 is 10, and I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to bring this up as 2/5. So that is equal to 2, I'm going to write it just above here, 2 and 2/5. Okay, now does that help me compare with the rest of these? So we got fraction, decimal, fraction, fraction. Yeah, right away I can see that this 12/5 is going to be the biggest value on our number line. So I'm going to put it right down here with the greatest, and I'm going to erase that. Now, in order for us to make that choice, we had to turn it into a mixed number. Now, do you notice we're only comparing 4 values now? Okay, now the other thing I see is right here. Do you notice how this 95/100ths is really close to one whole? And if we change this into a decimal, here's what it would look like. 95/100ths, 95/100ths. Can I compare that with this decimal here? Sure, I can see that 95/100ths is bigger than 61/100ths, but I'm having a tough time comparing that with this fraction. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this right here. We're going to turn this fraction 3/5 into a decimal. So remember, this feels a little backwards at first when you start to do it. You're going to divide 3 by 5, and you might be saying, Ms. Brocker, my 4th grade teacher told me you couldn't do this. You can now. You're human calculators. So you're going to put a decimal in your quotient, and what that means is you're signing a contract saying, I understand that I cannot get a whole number quotient. I'm going to get a decimal, which is a piece of a whole. Then you're going to draw that little tiny baby arrow down and a 0. Now, how many times can 5 go into 30? And that answer is 6. 5 times 6 is 30. That's it. So this decimal is equivalent to 6/10. Now can we compare it with the rest of these? Yeah. Also, we could do the same thing for 1/2, or because this is a benchmark fraction, you already might know that 1/2 is equal to 5/10. So now we have really 3 decimals that we're comparing. Try not to do them all at once, but maybe look at your list and say which one is biggest. So again, we know this one is equal to 6/10. So I'm going to look. I have 6/10, I have 95/100ths, 61/100ths, and 5/10. So maybe let's move our smallest one first. Right here, our 1/2 is going to be our smallest value. Okay, now we're just looking at 3 of these. I see that 95/100ths is clearly bigger than anything that has a 6 in the tens place. So I'm going to move this one over here. And now, look how we're comparing. We're comparing these two. We're comparing 6/10 and 61/100. Which one of those two is bigger? Remember that comparing work we did the other day. I can't make my choice in my tenths, but I'm going to go over to my hundredths and I can make my choice. So this one is bigger, is greater, and 3/5 is going to go right here. Okay, now don't think of this line as a number line because it really isn't, but think about the position of your number. So it doesn't matter if we put 3/5 like over here closer to 1/2 or over here, as long as they are in order from least to greatest. That's all we care about. Okay, that is it.